right, for this section, this part of 12.4, we're going to be focusing on the angle measures. So every measure that you're going to see is either going to represent an arc, part of the circle, or an angle measure. The first thing I want to focus on is chord. We're going to shorten that and call it CC. Right? Just like you talked about before, these chords are inside the circle. The angles are inside the circle. So notice the formula for the measure of angle 1, which is also the measure of angle 3. We're adding the two arc measures. Okay? So what I could do is I could take this and I could say, all right, the measure of angle 1 is equal to x plus y, and write it as divided by 2 instead of putting the 1/2 out in the front. We're going to do a couple of practice problems with this. You can write it however you want, but you do need to memorize these formulas. All right, so looking at the first example, you can choose, do you want to find x first or do you want to find y first? I personally like the alphabet, so I'm going to go alphabetically and find x first. In this particular problem, x, goes with this arc and this arc. So we're going to take 85, x is equal to 85, plus 57 and divide by 2. If you do the math, you get 71. There are two ways to go back and find angle y now. Notice that we have a linear pair, so I could do 180 minus 71, or you can use its intercepted arcs, 148 and 70. Either way, 148 plus 70 divided by 2 is going to equal 180 minus the 71 we got from x. If they don't, you did something wrong. So it's a good way to check your answer. And you should get either way that y equals 109. All right, take a second and look at the next picture. Let me move this out of your way. And see if you can figure out what the formula is going to look like and set it up. All right, this is how mine looks. 10x minus 1 plus x divided by 2 is equal to 38. Right? Combine your like terms, solve it out, make sure you multiply both sides by 2 first, and we get that x equals 7. Alright, so we just finished talking about chord, which is the only set of our angles that end up inside the circle, so it's the only one that's going to use that plus sign in the formula. Now that we're talking about the angle being outside the circle, we're going to talk about subtracting. So any angles outside the circle, you're going to do the same formula. Half of the big arc minus the small arc. And again, you can write it as big minus small divided by 2. One other thing to note is I split this using tangent. I split this into exactly 2 parts of my circle. So we know that an entire circle is 360 degrees. So if I know that, let's say this is 189, just for show, then this guy right here would be 360 minus 189. And we could do it vice versa, backwards as well. So let's practice a couple of these, or one of them. This one says first find 1, and 1 is representing an arc, and then find the measure of angle 2. I have to find 1 first, otherwise I have 2 variables in my equation. We just talked about this. We split the circle into 2 parts, 360 total, so we're going to do 360 minus 265 to get the measure of arc 1. Okay, so once you guys do that, you should have gotten 95 for the measure of 1. Now go ahead and use the formula that we just talked about, big minus small divided by 2, and see if you come up with the correct answer. All right, so big minus small divided by 2 has to equal the measure of angle 2. These are both answers. The arc for 1 is 95, 2 is 85. Tangent-secant is the same formula as tangent-tangent, but notice that we've got more than 2 parts of this circle. So we've cut it here, here, and here. So doing 360 minus one of those isn't necessarily going to give me the other part. So just pay attention to the information you have. This is still subtraction though, because the angle is still outside of your circle. All right, see if you can try the first one using the formula, big arc minus small arc divided by 2, right? If you guys did your math right, you should have gotten that the value of x in this particular problem is 70. All right, the next one's a little bit different. Go ahead and set it up, give it a try, pause, and then come back. We'll talk about how to work it out. All right, so big arc minus small arc divided by 2 has to equal my exterior angle of 38 degrees. So we've got to actually go through and solve, isolate it first. We can't just plug it in our calculator. So 180 minus x equals 76. You're going to get a negative at some point in time depending on how you do this, but your final answer will be positive 104. Keep in mind, angles and arcs should never be negative, so if your final answer is negative, check your math. All right, we're almost done. The last one is secant-secant. Notice the formula is still the same. Your angle is outside the circle, so we're still subtracting. Big arc minus small arc divided by 2. All right, so go ahead and get this one done. This is the answer you should have come up with in the work. Just plug it in your calculator, and we are good to go. One last thing is you need to memorize these formulas, the big minus small divided by 2, every time there's an angle outside. And then the chord formula, remember, it's x plus y divided by 2, or you could say it's half of x plus y.